Good morning. This is Gaming Perspectives with
Saul
and Jolene. And today we're talking about that one player that wants everybody to do what he wants. I don't know what you wanted to call it.
Yeah, we'll probably work on that title. The controlling player, the director. I don't know. We'll figure it out. Usually this doesn't happen too often in role-playing games. But
That's not true.
It's prone to happen in role-playing games, but in my experience, it hasn't happened too much because I think we're all egomaniacs in my group.
Everybody wants their turn in the spotlight and doesn't want anyone to tell them what to do. So I found this topic on, I guess it must have been Reddit. This guy says, what do you call the PC who insists on playing the other player's characters?
Pain in the butt? Butthead?
He says, player B, why don't you come over here and make an investigation check? Player C, can you detect magic? Well, why don't you use one of those, what does he call it? Hero points for this.
Yeah, okay. So this kind of reminds me of board games, right? And I don't like to use board games in the RPG podcast, but as an example, but here it is. So there's this type of board games called cooperative board games. And if anything, it's very similar to an RPG. RPGs are usually cooperative. You're in a group, unless it's a PvP, which means person versus person or player versus player game. Most of the time, you're supposed to work together to solve problems, whether that's go on a quest, save the princess, kill the dragon, defeat the evil wizard, whatever it is. So it's a cooperative thing. In board games, especially cooperative board games where you're all trying to beat the game, whatever that means. A prime example for me is Pandemic, because everybody plays a role and you're good at something, right? If you're the firefighter, you're the poison specialist.
I dislike that game because I've never been in a game where we actually won.
I've been in one game where we won, and it had that player, right? Because that person had played the game a lot of times, and he understood. It was a guy who understood the roles of what the special powers of every role every person was playing. So at one point, he said, "You do this, then you're gonna do this, then you're gonna do this, then you're gonna do this, and then we're gonna be able to beat it, right?" And sure enough, it worked. But I was like, I don't think I actually played that game.
I was just a pawn.
It wasn't like one turn. It was like, well, we could beat this game in a few turns if we all do this, and every turn he'd tell us what to do, and then at the end of the game, I'm like, and he goes, "Yeah, we won," and I'm like, and I didn't get it. Why I felt like I needed a shower. I don't know what it was. I didn't feel right about it. How's that? Not like need a shower, but it felt like I wasn't participating, right? And indeed I wasn't, because he basically had taken over every person's role, and we did exactly what he said. This is years ago too. This is years ago.
Yeah, because I don't think you played that game for quite a while.
Yeah.
The other cooperative game that I know is Forbidden Desert, and is it Forbidden Desert?
There's Forbidden Desert and Forbidden Island.
Well, whichever.
We have Forbidden Desert.
The one that we have, it's really hard to win.
Yes.
And even when we play that game with like Steve and Kathy, is who we usually play games
Right.
with, Steve has never told me what to do in that game.
Because it doesn't matter. You're just going to die in the sun.
Okay, so
Maybe because he hasn't figured it out yet.
because every once in a while he does that kind of thing to his wife, and it drives her nuts. He'll say, well, you should do this, and she's like, leave me alone, I'm going to play my own game, which is what you should say when somebody does that. Right.
Yeah. Okay, so this is my take on that, right? In both role-playing games and in board games, when that happens, it's because the player that is doing the directing, which is basically telling people what to do, so that's why I'm calling it directing, they probably have a lot of experience in the game, played it a few times, quite a few times maybe, and unlike me, at least in a board game, they're actually paying attention to what the situation of the other players are. Like, no matter what, and I understand when you play a board game, not even cooperative games, that you should pay attention to what enemy is doing, which is the other players. Like, for example, I will probably pay more attention to my other players' actions in a game of Game of Thrones, the board game, than Azul, right? Because the other players are basically attacking you or can attack you, and no matter what the alliance is, when you see their troops mounting on your border and not your supposedly mutual enemy's border, you're going to say, why is that happening? I can tell you why. He's going to stab you in the back. Okay, so I can understand. But like when we're playing Azul, I could care less what you're freaking doing over there on your side of the table. But people like Steve, they're looking at like their next move, and well, if he takes this, then I'm stuck with this. Let me tell you, and I guess that's why my win rate is not as high as his or possibly Jolene. I don't know if Jolene does. Do you do that? Look at other players and see what they can do to thwart what you might be able to do?
I do not do the chess thing where you are thinking 4 moves ahead.
How about
like
the next
my
move?
son? I will look and go what I want, but I figure it's going to be a while before it gets back to me. So who knows what's going to
That's
be.
exactly how I look at it. So in role-playing games, if you have somebody who is...
But I will do what I will look at it and say, if that other person needs it, I might take it. Because it's a strategy game.
To thwart them.
Yeah.
That's evil. But I understand. I don't usually do that only because unless it's going to benefit me no matter what. If it's just to screw the other player out of points, I still might do it if I realize it.
If I use it.
If I realize it, I might do it. Because any points you take away from like the best player is points you gain. I really believe in that. So, but I get to that point because I really don't pay attention to what other players are doing or what's happening on their tableau, their side of the table, whatever you want to call it.
So when you take that into role-playing games, before you talk about board games for a half hour.
I was just going to mention in board games, it's called quarterbacking. I don't know if I want to use that term in role-playing games, but directing seems better.
Just in case you don't know, that's American football. The person who runs the team.
Oh, he runs the team?
Doesn't he?
I don't know.
He throws the ball. He tells people where to go.
He's the one that
calls the
passes.
plays.
He calls the play. Right. You're right. They're in charge. Maybe, I don't know. I don't watch American football. I actually don't like it very much. The World Rugby Cup is happening now, and it's more fascinating for me, more exciting. Be that as it may. When you have a person like this who is directing people what to do, and that's, now I'm not going to say that's fine. I understand what that person's doing, right? If they're trying to help their other fellow players, if the other player don't have as much experience.
I think it comes down to two things.
Oh,
Either that person does it all the time, no matter the experience of the players, or they really are trying to help people. Both can be annoying, right?
both for the same. It doesn't matter, right? It doesn't matter why they're doing it. It matters that they do it, no matter what their reasoning is, especially if they do it all the time.
And this is a little bit different than, say, you're playing in a Shadowrun game and
Okay.
everybody's saying, well, how are we going to breach this building without getting caught and killed, right? And get whatever we have to and get out.
You're talking about the
And
planning
then
stage.
That's
yeah.
a strategy session. Well, that happens in D&D, same thing. A lot of times if we're waiting and this is all up to the GM is not paying attention or doesn't say, okay, it's time to go now. We will have a strategy session between each other out of game, right?
Well, in game too. I mean, your characters are talking to each other, trying to figure stuff out.
So that happens. There's There's where people are going, well, and then sometimes, like, I don't know what we were playing. I think it was Root and this could have just been laziness on our part. Well, who has the better skill to do this? What's your number? Okay, I'll help you do the roll, right?
Yes.
Which gives the person a boost. But that could be just lazy playing and out of role playing and
Metagaming.
you're tired at 9:00 at night on a Friday when you're playing, right?
A little bit of metagaming there. Yeah, you're right. And it kind of does irk me a little bit when we do that. We do that because of
expediency.
I think so. And man, that was the exact word I was going to use.
Well, and sometimes like for that game, we wanted to do the rolling expediently, but we did the role playing
I think we did a lot of role playing in that root game.
not expedient. We did it in a more normal fashion where
Yeah.
when you got to the role, you were just okay.
Yes.
Who's the best one to do this because
Right. And I think at some point we were not referring to ourselves as the number, but like, oh, I'm really now I forget the attributes in root, but like I'm really charismatic. So I think
I have no charisma.
well, yeah. I mean,
Don't make me roll that again.
but you're right. I think that does happen for expediency. The whole idea of metagaming.
Yeah.
And indeed, the director, the person who's telling other people what to do, is kind of is metagaming, right? He's like, maybe how does this person know what other person's abilities are? Is it at the beginning of the adventure? Is it the beginning of the campaign? Do these people know each other in this group? I mean, I don't know. There's all kinds of situations where a character would not know that another character has magic missile or lightning bolt, or even the ability to throw that spell. Now they might know, oh, you're a mage, but they may not know the list of spells that they can cast.
Well, the most of the games that I've been in where I found that annoying was when we were playing an organized play, where you're sitting at a table and it's supposed to be a well-rounded table. Everybody has a task, or somebody, you're like the tank, or you're
A round table? Sorry, bad joke. A well-rounded table, yes. You're right. They not make you. It's almost like you have to have, one person has to play the ranged fighter. One has to be the shield. No, they don't call them shield.
Tank.
Exactly. The arcane spell thrower, the cleric, the healer. I mean, sometimes they don't refer to them by class, just healer.
But that's because of the kind of game, because you need each of those skills, right, in that game to progress to the next level.
Right, to be successful in the mission.
Because it's an organized play, so you don't necessarily know the people you're playing with. It's not like a campaign at your house where it doesn't matter if you have a healer or not. You can patch the person up and run them to wherever you need to take them, right?
Right.
Or you bought healing potions, that kind of thing. So that's different. But I found it very interesting because people at the table will go, well, you need to do that role because you have a better blah, blah, blah. Your skill is better in that than...
You have a high charisma. You should talk to this person. Okay, thanks.
But that's different. That's a different kind of play. But that's where I noticed these directors or the person, someone at the table going, oh no, he shouldn't do that. She should do that because she has the higher.
Yeah, I gotta admit that's where most of that stuff happens, is in that type of gameplay.
And a lot of times when you're playing, if you're sitting at a table with people that want everybody to have a chance to do stuff, that has a lot to do with the idea of having a well-rounded table, right? Everybody gets a chance to do something, so they're in the spotlight.
Yeah.
And that's a good thing. And it's a bad thing if someone's saying, well, okay, you can't try that because he has the better skill.
Right. Yeah.
He needs to do that.
Yes. I think when I played organized play with my son when he was little and I was on vacation, we would go play role-playing games at Game Castle, our local hobby shop, and other places. And organized play, and at the time it was Pathfinder. I don't think we ever played AD&D, AD&D, 5th edition. It was mainly when it was Pathfinder, and I think I did run across that, right? This idea that your fellow players knew what you were and knew your abilities and would tell you, "Oh, you should do this." I'm like, no, I don't feel like doing that.
And that's where the problem comes in. Most people don't like to be told what to do, and so it's up to the GM to tell the person who's telling it. There's different things you can try, right? You can say, okay, if you're going to, Saul's big thing is, are you there? or you're not there, don't tell them what to do, right?
Or you can't say that, right? They're not,
Are you saying that in character?
I always get, oh yeah, and I think that's keep them honest, right?
Right.
As far as the game, what is it?
Are we metagaming now?
The suspension of disbelief, right?
Yeah.
If we're playing Dungeons and Dragons, okay, there's dragons, right? It's hard to not be fantastical, right? At the same time, let's say you split the party, you don't, it's not supposed to, supposedly, but you do. People do all the time, and they're like, oh, why don't you? And they're not even there, right? Let's say two guys are off doing something, exploring a certain room by themselves, and another player goes, "Oh, you have shield. You should put shield on before you go into that room." And I'll say, you know what, you need to be quiet because you're not there,
Right.
and that usually shuts them up. Because I say it like that. I go, you're not there. You can't say anything. Be quiet. I go, and then I go to the person whose action it actually is. I say, what are you going to do? And if they say that, what that person said they were going to do or told them to do, that's fine. But I quickly staunch that out when other people who are not, the characters are not there to help them out. Now, the real reason I will step in is because nobody at my table is a brand new player. They all know the characters. They all know what the characters can do, except for maybe Kathy in any game that we play. I can see people trying to help her out, but sometimes they're trying to help her out too much by actually telling her what to do, right?
Instead of letting her make choices.
A lot of times she just wants to know something like, oh, what die roll is it if I...
Which die do I need to use?
Yeah, what die... Yeah, that's what I meant. What die type do I need to roll for damage with my sword?
And she'll get a 5-minute explanation.
Why she shouldn't use her sword. Right? I go, you know what? You're not there. She's using the sword. That's fine. But her trident does more damage, and in this, she has range and blah, 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 blah. Okay, be quiet. You're not there, or it's not your turn. Be quiet. And usually that'll shut people up, and then they won't do that anymore. And then she'll say it to the people, I just don't want to know how much damage this thing does. I don't need any more help. And people get frustrated on both sides, right? She's frustrated with all this extra information that she doesn't want or opinions, and they're not answering the question that she's asking. And the other side is getting frustrated because she's not doing the optimal thing. But those things are squashed by her and me because she can tell people, her sons and my son, and Jolene never tells her this, but her husband, to shut up, leave me alone. I just want to know what die type. So a lot of times I'll say, well, if you have any questions, direct them toward me or to your son on the left.
Yes.
Right? Whoever that is. Usually Alan. Alan's very good at answering the question that you ask and not giving a plethora of excess information that you don't ask. The other two in her life, other men in her life, like to explain everything, why this is an 8 die, but it could be better if you were to use this and why and how this could happen. How it could affect 10 turns from now.
And she just wanted to know if she was supposed to roll the D4 or the D8. That's all.
Right. So I understand that this happens quite a bit sometimes, this little helping thing. But when people are really doing it a lot, it can be really frustrating for the player. And
so there's two different things, right? We all know each other. We have been friends and together for 23, 25, 20 whatever years,
right,
as friends. And so we can say amongst ourselves, no, she wants to learn, all she wants to know is what dice she's supposed to roll, which is what I say to them. Don't tell her 20 other things. To which they because they really want to tell you, right?
Yes, the stabber.
Or she'll get frustrated and go, stop talking to me. It's my turn.
And that's with your family, right? And friends. So, I mean, that's...
So you feel comfortable, right? But if you're playing a game with people you don't know and someone is telling you what to do, you're going to be like, if you're like me, you're going to be going, I didn't ask you for any information.
I asked for help.
If I need help, I'll ask.
So what do you do in those situations when somebody is really trying to almost basically take over your character and everybody else at the table? A lot of times other people will say, well, they might say, it's okay. I don't need help.
Yeah.
A lot of people will say that.
Yeah.
It's okay. I don't need help on this. I can play my character. I don't think...
but a lot of new players don't know. They're still learning, right?
Right. And so they see this as helpful. They might see this as helpful.
Until it becomes annoying.
And then I think that's when there's two things. Either the player is new to the game, then the GM should step in and say, you know what? When it's their turn, they get to talk first. Don't immediately tell them what to do. And especially if they're not there. You're not there to tell them that they are in a room by themselves. They need to tell me what they're going to do or how they're going to react to whatever situation I present as a GM. That should work as quieting down the person who's the director, trying to direct everybody. And I think that works as a player, if you're an experienced player or a player that knows what they're doing, and somebody keeps telling you stuff, do the exact opposite of what they say. Because then they're going to get really frustrated with you because you're like, you're not listening to me. They may not say that, but in their brain, they're definitely saying that. And they realize every time I say something, go left, you're going right. Okay, I'm going to be quiet because it's not working. It may really frustrate them too. That's kind of funny. Those are tricks that you can use, but I think the best thing to do, and it's all probably the hardest thing, to say, you know what, as a GM or as a player, you can both do this and say, depending on who you are, say, you know what, let me play my character. I know I'm going to make mistakes, and that's part of the game. Making mistakes and me learning from those mistakes. And not always am I going to do the right thing or the most optimal thing. As a GM, you say, well, let them make mistakes. They're going to learn to play, and that's the fun part. See, because I think that's what is the worst thing about somebody directing other people playing, is that you're not allowing them to have fun. Like when I was playing Pandemic, the guy was really happy that we won, and I'm like, yeah, you did. Right?
I had no part in that.
And it was cool because like you said, we had played Pandemic like 3 or 4 times. The world burned in the blaze of the plague, right?
Don't let Saul, Jolene, and Steve and Kathy try to save the world.
Yeah, I think it was at Chris and Lisa's house is when we won. And I don't remember who was the director. But I understand that in the sense that he wants to win. He wanted to win, and he did. But I felt like I wasn't even like taking part of it, right? Because he had already designed, he already figured out what.
And he had never had people to do it, right, the way he wanted it. So this time he did, I guess. I wasn't playing that. I don't play Pandemic because I've never won Pandemic no matter what version. Even Paul brought the dice version.
Oh, that one actually was fun.
And I tried to play it, and I think I died right away.
I don't remember. I thought you liked that one, though.
No, well, it's the most fun one that I've died in.
I think the one we were talking about was Roll for the Galaxy. There's a card game called something for the Galaxy.
No, it was Pandemic.
Game. I know we did play the Pandemic game, but the one you liked was Roll for the Galaxy.
Probably, yeah. I like anything with dice.
Dice is nice, yes. I think when you really should start dealing with this is right away as a GM or as a player, because once people get used to directing, it's hard for them to stop.
And sometimes friends, it'll happen with friends, right? If someone knows the game better than you and they tell you what they think you should do, then you'll go, okay. But then, and sometimes that stays around, right? That person is telling people what they should do.
Right.
And that can turn into the dynamic around the table.
Right. Of you going, yeah, okay, and just ignoring them and just letting them say stuff.
Yeah.
And just not even bother listening to what he says or they say. And that happens too. I mean, I don't remember. I think in our table, Steve likes telling people what to do only because he likes, like a board game and like a true thinker, he likes the optimal play, right? He makes mini max.
And it frustrates him
when
to no end when Kathy and I just look at him and do whatever we want.
Or any other player, right? I mean, I think the situation in our home is like I have a son, my friends have 2 sons, and the husband. And the 4 of them are mini maximizers. They love optimizing everything they do for the best whatever.
And they think about everything, think it through, right? Because like Augustine played chess. He still does.
Yes, he still plays chess.
And he's always thinking 4 moves ahead.
Right.
And he doesn't understand why I don't think 4 moves ahead when I'm just trying to figure out what's going on and what I want to do right now.
Right. And it really bugged the 4 of them when I was playing the character that kept doing the wrong thing.
Yeah.
My gnome, remember? And like, and then
Then when they figured out that if they said the word plan, not to do any, not
right, because it was the thing. It was one of the things in the D&D 5th edition book of when you make a character, the character doesn't like plans.
Yeah.
It breaks them all the time. I go, oh, that's perfect for my gnome, right? So when they were in the planning stages, I'm like, oh yeah, good. Oh, I like that plan, and then I wouldn't do it.
And then
drove them nuts.
they finally figured out they couldn't use the word plan.
Right. So they
This is not a plan.
yes. They start trying to use other words, and then my character goes, sounds like a plan to me.
Is that the plan?
And they were like, no. And it was funny because they would all like yell in unison, no, it's not a plan. And I'm like, sounds like a plan to me. And they would just put their head down. They're like, okay, we can't trust that character.
Yeah.
He's going to do whatever he's going to do. And I think it was enjoyable. I think I enjoyed the fact that I was, what is it? A fly in their ointment. Right. And at the same time, I think it allowed them to deal with stuff more spontaneous, more on the fly.
Yeah.
Instead of this carefully thought out, tactical, whatever it was that we're even like if we're just like, oh, we're gonna investigate this warren,
even when
on the ground, and we're gonna tactically investigate it, and here comes the gnome going, yeah, let's just walk in and see what's there.
Well, and like when Chris used to play with us, he was very cautious about everything, right? And it drove him crazy that the boys were just charge right in, right? He's like, no, let's plan it out, and they're like already gone. and
that was the plan
because we're gonna die.
Well, they were younger, right?
Yes.
They were like, they were
early teenagers, 10 to 14.
10 to 14. So there was that element, and yeah, that was a while ago, yeah. And well, way before the pandemic.
And it was easy. I remember he used to go, wait, let's think about this, and they're off. And because,
yeah, I forgot about that. They became Chris, right? And me with my gnome character, I'm like, let's throw a little chaos into this.
I don't think they quite became Chris. I think they will consider what they're going to do, but they are going to go in and bash somebody's head.
Yeah,
that's all there is to it.
But at the same time, they also like to try to maximize their potential to do that kind of stuff, right? Or maximize their successfulness.
Yes.
When sometimes, I don't think as a role player or a role-playing game or a story, everything goes according to plan.
And it doesn't. And they find that funny too, so.
Yeah, so I think when we were playing in those games and somebody was trying to direct us, whoever it was, a lot of times we just ignored them. There was a lot of ignoring around. I mean, ignoring at the table. Or if we did follow, that was the worst part when they would listen to somebody who told them something and then they ended up getting hurt or it didn't work. And that would make them angry as kids. I think they, in that sense, they learn, like, don't, just because somebody's older doesn't mean that what they're telling you is the best thing to do.
And not only that, they learn that, whether they're going to win or fail or succeed, they can choose what they want to do, right?
Right. And that's fun. And that's the funnest part of role-playing games, right? That's why people enjoy role-playing games. It's not instead, but also it's different than playing a computer game, right? Because a computer game, no matter how well it's written, no matter how amazingly it's programmed, like even supposedly Baldur's Gate 3, which I don't own, but a lot of people I know absolutely love it, and they're amazed at how many different directions you can go. You're still limited in what direction you can go, no matter what, because that's the limit of programming. When you're playing a role-playing game, that is gone. You can do literally anything you want, or try to do anything you want, and have the consequences of trying to do those things. And I think that's what is so fun about role-playing games. And so when somebody's trying to direct you, that's limiting that fun. And I think same thing like that victory of pandemic I sort of had. It's kind of cheap, right? Like, oh, I didn't feel like I had done anything in the last 4 turns. Literally, because I didn't. Because I was just doing whatever the other guy told me. And I'm like, oh, yeah, well, we won. Okay. But I can understand I can see that when you do that, the person who's doing that is trying to be really successful. And I guess they equate that with having fun, but don't realize that they should be probably playing a solo game where they can run all the characters together and by themselves. Players, what can you do if you have this kind of person? Ask them why. Why do you want me to do that? And a lot of times
you can say, "Oh, that's a good option. Let me decide what I want to do,"
Yeah,
or
and
"I
then-
want to go."
ask them why, and then they can say their stuff, and then turn to other people. What do you think of that?
Yeah.
And, if the game allows time for that, right?
Right.
This discussion. Ask other people. Hey, does anybody agree with that opinion or that idea? And then there will be a discussion probably.
Or if you're Saul, do exactly the opposite of what they just said.
Well, there's that. That's a tactic. That's kind of a mean tactic because it's kind of sly, and you're hoping that the person will get like fed up with you, and
Stop telling you what to
telling
do.
you what to do. So it's kind of sly, but it's better like if you confront the person and say, "Well, why do you want me to do this?" And then if after they explain it, you go ahead and ask somebody else. It's like telling them, "Well, I'll take it into consideration. What do you think?" And then you ask another player, especially if you're new. That would give you a better idea of all these different opinions. And the person who's really the director doesn't want other people's opinions. They want you to do what they want you to do because that's the best thing possible
In their mind.
in their mind, right? And
Because it's a role playing game, so I've found that people are never going to do what you think they're going to do. As a
GM.
player and a GM.
Oh, as a player and a GM. As a player, I can kind of guess how my fellow players are going to go. Even as a GM, I can see that. I'm like, okay, they're probably going to do this, but you're right.
But they don't always do it.
Never know. Doing the opposite of what they do. There's always putting on those big boy pants.
That's the way that you should go.
And I think and say, you know what? Let me play my character. It may not be the most optimal way of playing. It may not be the best thing for the party. Let my character make mistakes, and I'll learn from those mistakes.
And it's easier to do if you know the people, right?
Obviously.
Because we have that all the time in our especially me and Kathy. I know what my character can do. She learns what her character can do, and then we do what we want no matter what they're telling us to do.
Right. And I think that is why we play role-playing games, is because we have that kind of freedom to at least try to do anything we can conceive.
And some of the funniest parts of role playing are when you don't make your roles or you don't what you want to do doesn't succeed, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes people can get really frustrated if they like. I know one time Steve was getting frustrated because every role was against him, and he was really trying to help everybody, right? But he couldn't because he kept not making the roll. Frustration was like I don't remember, but the frustration was like. You could just see it was like it was hurting him.
Yes, I remember that. And you stopped rolling, right? You go, I'm just not going to stop rolling. I'm going to do something else.
Yeah, he finally did because he couldn't do it.
Yeah, I think. Oh man, what game? I think it was the D&D.
I don't remember, but so it doesn't really matter what you're doing. Sometimes that director person wants you to optimize everything, right? But sometimes you might go ahead and do it, and you may not make the roll.
Yes. Yeah, you're right. I think. When things like that happen and the person is frustrated because your character didn't do something, it's like, I don't know, it kind of lessens the idea of the role-playing game. So that's why you should either ignore the person or tell them, you know what, let me play my character the way I want to play it. I understand I might make mistakes, or especially like when you're trying to do something, it's different than a rule question, right?
Yeah.
If you have a rule question, I'll ask. If I have a question about the rules, let me ask instead of stepping in right away. That way, let me think about things and let my brain work, and so I can figure this out. And then I think if you approach it that way, I think you'll be a lot more successful. But also, sometimes some people really. It's hard for them to take a hint, or it's hard for them to accept certain things. So you have to be real straightforward and say, just let me play my character the way I want to play him. That's it.
And the GM should be doing that also.
And the GM should definitely support you in that, say. And I'm sure if that is happening, the super serious conversation should happen after you try all these things to mitigate this director type person.
Because you don't want someone standing up in the middle of a game saying, "Don't tell me what to do."
No, that might
Because then the fun of that game is going to go.
That game might just not be fun anymore.
Yeah.
Yes. So there's people out there who do this directing thing. Just say, I'm learning. Let me
Thank you for the advice. Let me try.
let me
my
think
way.
a little bit before you start handing me advice or giving me advice. Let me think about what I can do. Let me look up what I can do. And if you see that happen in your game as a GM, step in and say, yes, let this person think about their character. Let this person there's no timer on my board saying, you got to do this in 15 seconds or else I'm going to skip your turn. I mean, I wouldn't do that, but I've never seen that timer at the RPG table. So I think that's the best way to do it is work on a person who's trying to direct you. And then if all your options are gone, just say straightforward, okay, this is not going to be fun for anybody else. You telling them what to do, you need to control it because it's not fun for everybody else. And like I said, when we won that pandemic game, I was questioning whether I had played the last 4 rounds of that game or not.
So there you go. Hopefully this helps if you have that person in your group.
Right.
This is Gaming Perspectives with
Saul
and Jolene.
And you have a good day.